On this Friday night, pain in the gas. Canadians contend with record high prices at the pumps.
It's just awful. I can't even believe it.
What's fueling the increase? And can drivers expect any relief down the road? More evidence of war crimes committed by Russian forces in Ukraine. And fresh fears for what lies ahead as Russia prepares to mark Victory Day. A powerful explosion destroys a 5-star Havana hotel. The chaos, casualties, and suspected cause. Manitoba's farmers flooded. The disaster and devastating consequences. Plus, 23rd time's a charm.
We're thrilled, but not surprised.
The latest twist in this Canadian Jeopardy champion's record run.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Canadian drivers had a crude awakening this morning. Gas prices across the country climbed to record highs, nearing or even exceeding the $2 benchmark. Vancouver residents are paying among the most at around $2.17 per litre. The lowest prices are in Alberta, but even they are paying above $1.60 today. Heading east, Torontonians are shelling out around $1.95 per litre. Gas is above $2 in Montreal, while in Atlantic Canada, drivers are paying slightly less, but still a record of around $1.91. That growing gas bill comes as many Canadians are already struggling to cope with the rising cost of living. As Abigail Bimman reports, there's little relief in sight.
$130.33.
Have you ever had to pay that much for?
Never, ever. Well, in a boat, yes, but in a vehicle, I don't drive a transport truck or anything.
With gas nearing or exceeding the $2 a litre mark in places across the country, many motorists feel handcuffed.
You're kind of gouged in the sense that, hey, we all got to go to work.
I'm only putting in $30. Yeah, I'm just going to top it up a little bit, maybe ride it out, see what my budget can do.
If they can't cut back on driving, some are forced to make other changes.
It's hard, and I'm a single mom, so I don't make a double salary, so I got to make cuts where I can.
10 cents, people think it's nothing, but 10 cents is something.
According to Statistics Canada, this is how gas prices have climbed across the country since last May, when prices averaged $1.31.5 per litre to March 2022. People in the BC Lower Mainland consistently pay the most for gas, while those in Edmonton pay the least. Driving daily life difficulty, wage stagnation, and small pay increases that come nowhere near the overall climbing inflation rate.
Those gas prices are going to work their way through the supply chain, right? So those vegetables that you're buying at the store, or meat that you're buying at the store, all of them will be affected.
For those who are struggling, which tends to be a lot of middle class and poor Canadians, the fact that alternatives are not scalable, they're not reliable, they're not affordable, I think really puts us in a bit of a bind.
A complex bind that analysts say doesn't have a quick solution.
Unfortunately, we continue to set new records almost every day as we make the transition to summer gasoline across Canada, and as we see oil prices continue to go up as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
More Canadians than ever are now deciding whether it's worth hitting the road, but many still can't afford not to. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Ottawa.
And one factor driving those gas prices to record highs is the war in Ukraine, where today we saw a sliver of good news. A humanitarian convoy carrying 50 women, children, and elderly people made it safely out of that Mariupol steel plant. A desperate relief for the dozens now out of that besieged port city, but many more remain trapped inside. And as Redmond Shannon reports, the window to rescue them may be about to close.
The hint of a smile after 2 months in hellish conditions. Buses that made their way out of Azovstal steel plant Friday stopped off for the night in a village just outside Mariupol. Ukraine's Azov battalion says one of its soldiers was killed early Friday when Russian forces fired at the evacuation convoy. It's not known how many civilians remain inside Azovstal, perhaps over 100, along with Ukrainian troops. Their fate, for better or worse, could be decided by Monday. That's the Victory Day public holiday in Russia, when it's expected Vladimir Putin will want something to celebrate.
The fighting in Ukraine, but especially in Mariupol, has been turned into this almost mini, small-scale symbolic victory. So Mariupol is very important.
Amnesty International now says it has gathered evidence that Russian troops committed war crimes in the region north of Kyiv.
We know they are part of a pattern that has characterized Russia's conduct of the hostilities from the outset. A repeated pattern, large in scale and devastating in impact.
Russia has denied targeting civilians. On Friday, its UN ambassador called such evidence a coordinated campaign of lies.
The reality, however, is strikingly different, and Ukrainian authorities and their Western backers are not interested in shedding any light on it.
Of course, Russia has also denied this is a war at all. The Kremlin is also lashing out at those who've suggested Russia might use nuclear weapons. But twice in recent weeks, Russian state TV aired segments describing potential nuclear attacks against the West. And as Victory Day approaches, one of the aircraft practicing flypasts above Moscow is the Ilyushin IL-80, Russia's airborne command center for a would-be nuclear war. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
In Cuba, rescuers are combing through mounds of rubble tonight after an explosion at a luxury hotel in Havana killed at least 18 people, including a pregnant woman and a child. Well, officials say no visitors were staying at the popular tourist destination at the time. Dozens have been injured, and many more are still missing. Jackson Prosco reports on the suspected cause of the explosion.
These appear to be the moments after the explosion at Havana's landmark Hotel Saratoga. Moments later, a frantic search through the rubble for survivors in the city's old quarter. It was a blast that threw me, said this witness. The explosion ripped the facade off the historic building, exposing the first 3 stories of rooms to the street below. Vehicles in the street were destroyed. Thick smoke filled the area as rescuers rushed to help the injured. Cuban state TV showed ambulances on the scene and paramedics helping move the wounded to hospital. The hotel is directly across the street from Cuba's National Capitol building. Speaking from outside a hospital, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel was quick to rule out a terrorist attack or bombing. The hotel was apparently undergoing final preparations for a post-pandemic reopening and was not occupied by guests at the time of the blast. The state-run hotel operator said workers were resupplying gas to the building when the explosion took place. This is what the Hotel Saratoga looked like before the explosion, a stunning Art Deco relic of the 1930s. Now just a heaping pile of rubble in the heart of Havana. Jackson Prosco, Global News.
Farmers in southern Manitoba are used to dealing with some spring flooding, but nothing like this. Take a look at these communities underwater. Boats are now needed to get around Morris, that's about 75 kilometers southwest of Winnipeg, and other regions are dealing with much of the same. There are concerns about the overall damage to the agriculture industry. Farmers expect to lose millions of dollars. Abigail Turner has more on when the floodwaters will recede.
So there's about, I would say about 3-4 feet of water on the bridge.
1 year after a record-setting drought in Manitoba, and farmers in the Red River Valley are now faced with this.
Well, the problem with flooding is we just don't know how bad it's going to get.
Ray Shaw has lived in Morris, a southern Manitoba town of about 1,200 for 20 years. The only way he can get to his front step is by boat. He has a permanent dike built around his yard to protect 50 sheep.
We knew enough when the roads were lower to bring in feed, bring in this, bring in all the stuff. I have sandbags here if all of a sudden there is a 2-inch rain.
The flooding is so widespread, it's beginning to change local weather patterns.
On the downwind side, we get the development of clouds, and that can sometimes bubble up to be lake effect. Snow in the winter, some rain in the summer, but thankfully there's not enough moisture to trigger that.
The overland flooding spans 30 kilometers at its widest point. That's half the size of Winnipeg. and the depth of all that water could spell doom for some farmers.
There's 6 feet of water on the fields, nothing we can do.
Thorsten Stans has been growing grain and oilseed here for 40 years. Of his 6,000 acres, 50,000 are underwater.
Our optimum window is first, second week in May. If you have to seed the first or the second week in June, you can expect a yield decrease of, 30%.
And that has devastating financial impacts.
There's some potential for $1,000 an acre of what we would consider revenue. When you take that times 10 million acres, the numbers are huge.
For now, farmers like Shaw have their eyes glued to the skies. There's the potential for more rain this weekend. With the crest of the Red River Valley that's anticipated next week, it can't come soon enough. Abigail Turner, Global News, Winnipeg.
And to flooding south of the border now, where more than 25 million Americans are in the path of severe thunderstorms. A line of storms is tearing across portions of the South and the Midwest. The system spawned several tornadoes in Texas and Oklahoma yesterday. Officials there say several homes and dozens of businesses were destroyed. Roadways are underwater, with wind speeds forecast to reach over 110 kilometers per hour. Out of office. Coming up, how Canadians are feeling about returning to the workplace. Plus, royally snubbed. We'll tell you who is being excluded from a key event marking the Queen's Jubilee. There's some good news for Canada's economy today. New data shows the jobless rate has fallen again to another record low. According to Statistics Canada, the unemployment rate for April came in at 5.2%. That's down from the previous record of 5.3% set in March. The jobless rate has been falling steadily since reaching an all-time high 2 years ago at the height of the pandemic. That labor market is tightening at the same time as many businesses are making plans to bring employees back to the office. But workers in high demand can hold more influence over where and how they want to work. As Anne Gaviola reports, Canadians appear divided about the changes in store.
You could call it the Great Divide when it comes to the future of work.
Going back into the office, you really get that opportunity to see people in real life again. So you can have some of those quick conversations that I couldn't have otherwise.
I really like the productivity and the flexibility that working from home gives me.
Ipsos polling exclusively for Global News suggests people who have worked remotely during the pandemic are split on the return to the office, but united in embracing flexible schedules.
Many Canadians want the changes that the pandemic brought to the workplace to be permanent and for things to not go back the way they were before that fateful day in March 2020.
In fact, 1 in 3 say they'd look for another job if their employer forced them to work exclusively at the office. And yet 42% say they're happiest at their place of work rather than working from home. The divide is especially pronounced among younger workers. Nearly half of people between the ages of 18 and 34 say they prefer to be in the office rather than working remotely. Now, that may reflect a desire for many to learn and connect with colleagues from those starting out in their careers. But a little more than half of young workers say they just want to work from home.
Working remotely or in the workplace is very much linked to the housing crisis that we're seeing right now. Young people are struggling to save up for down payments.
The average savings for remote workers in 2021 was about $200 a week, or more than $1,100 a year, according to Cisco Canada. That's money saved on commuting, lunches out, childcare, pet care, and work attire. With a rapidly rising cost of everything, those numbers are only going up. Attitudes on where and how to work have shifted, with 44% saying their workplace now offers flexible arrangements that didn't exist pre-pandemic. Hybrid schedules are the most common in Ontario, where more than half say their workplace has adopted a flexible model, followed by Atlantic Canada and BC at 43% and Quebec 38%. Time will tell whether changes ushered in during the pandemic will fade away or give way to a new normal in and out of the workplace. Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Mysteries of the Metaverse still ahead. What's driving investors to this virtual frontier?
You're watching Global National.
There we can see the deployment of those main parachutes.
Less than 24 hours after the SpaceX Crew 3 mission left the International Space Station, the capsule splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico. 3 NASA astronauts and 1 from the European Space Agency spent 6 months on board the ISS, testing new technologies from growing crops and printing bandages made from skin cells directly onto the wound. SpaceX, founded by the world's richest man, Elon Musk, has helped launch 26 people into space over the past couple of years. Mark Zuckerberg calls it living in the future. The Metaverse aims to be a virtual universe where users from around the world can interact in immersive digital spaces. It's still being developed and is a little rough around the edges, but that hasn't stopped tech giants, brands, and even everyday people from rushing to build and invest. Kayla McLean has been working on this story for The New Reality. Kayla.
In what's being described as the next evolution of the internet, the race is on to develop the virtual world of the future. Some investing thousands and even millions into real estate. And one of them is a diner owner from Montreal. David Minicucci has only been the owner of the famous Cosmos for less than 2 years, but he's been going to the Montreal diner since he was a teenager. He decided to buy the restaurant because it holds a lot of sentimental value for him. David wanted to expand the brand, but not with another bricks and mortar location. Instead, David spent close to $15,000 to buy land in the Metaverse and open a virtual Cosmos.
You know, I'm an entrepreneur. I want to, grow the business just like anybody else would want to do. But at the same time, I truly have an emotional attachment to this place, and I'll never change what we actually do here.
David is just one of many people, whether investors or tech giants, racing to own a piece of virtual land and investing in the future of the Metaverse. It's expected to be a multi-trillion-dollar revenue opportunity. There are a handful of online platforms that offer Metaverse experiences, some owned by companies, and others that are community-driven. For example, Decentraland, Sandbox, and Horizon Worlds. Aaron Maney, also known as Mr. Who's the Boss, is a YouTube tech expert based in the UK.
So I like to define it as it's not an internet that you're looking at through a screen, it's an internet that you're inside of. One of the coolest things in the metaverse is this idea of being able to feel close to people who are further away. So imagine a world where we're perfectly connected. You can almost snap your fingers and feel like you're in the same room as someone who's on a different continent. And you'll be able to kind of see everything from their facial expressions to their emotions through their virtual avatar. That's kind of the promise of the metaverse.
Now, with all the potential and buzz around the metaverse, there are some real-life concerns. Will the problems currently plaguing social media transfer to these communities and platforms? And also, will your data and privacy be protected? Jeff?
Kayla McLean in Toronto. Thanks, Kayla. And Kayla will have more about the metaverse's potential and concerns over data and privacy. That's on The New Reality tomorrow night at 8 o'clock right here on Global. Roach's record run. Next, can Canada's greatest Jeopardy champ keep her winning streak alive? Welcome back. Buckingham Palace is preparing to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee next month, which will include the standard royal photo op from the balcony. But this time, Princes Harry and Andrew are not invited. The palace says only working members of the royal family will join the Queen on the iconic balcony during opening celebrations on June the 2nd. Prince Harry and wife Meghan gave up royal duties in 2020, but they're still planning to travel to the UK to mark the Queen's 70 years on the throne. Prince Andrew, meanwhile, relinquished royal duties following a now settled sexual assault case, but he will also attend other events. To some breaking news now, and a major spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched tonight's episode of Jeopardy! After 23 straight wins, Canadian contestant Mattea Roach's record run has ended.
Mattea Roach, it has been a pleasure watching you play the game.
The Nova Scotia-born Roach lost by just $1 in tonight's final round, but her defeat is bittersweet. She won more than $500,000 US, making her the winningest Canadian ever. As Ross Lord reports, Maritimers say she's a marvel.
Mattea.
What is Cloak and Dagger?
You got it.
Secret word 2.
Matea Roach has shown more knowledge about more things than almost anyone who's ever played Jeopardy!
What is the Golden Gate Bridge? Yeah.
She's got emotional intelligence to spare, too. She's humble, like this mid-game shout-out to the debate coach at her high school in Halifax, Brian Casey.
He would come up to me and my partner and be like, okay, girls, it's showtime. So that's what I was thinking last week every time before I came up to play. So I wanted to thank him.
Oh, well, I was crying, of course. I had no expectation that there was going to be anything like that happening.
We're thrilled, but not surprised by her success. She's wicked smart.
You would never think that someone from a school so local, that your own school, would actually make it on such a big stage and such an international stage like Jeopardy!
Matea has always stood out. In this era of continuous distraction, she pays attention and recalls information instantly. Her family home is among many in Nova Scotia where people gather to see her compete, providing excitement to offset the drudgery of the pandemic and other distressing events.
People are wonderfully supportive, and it's a real satisfying thing to see that response to your kid.
Her father says Matea does have a cutting sense of humor she hasn't shown off on TV. And she has the same knack as all great competitors for making the right move at the right time.
Last night was really scary. It was a nail biter, but we're all so happy every night when she wins.
She was in second place with $13,000. What film did you write down? What is Citizen Kane? If this is it, thanks for the fun. It is Citizen Kane.
Her front-running opponent had nothing.
And at just 23 years old, a 23-day total of $560,983.
After piling up more than $700,000 Canadian in winnings, it's a safe bet Matea will integrate her success into her future with intelligence and with charm. Ross Lord, Global News, Halifax.
And that is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada is Stafford Lake in the city of Brooks, Alberta. We love seeing Your Canada, so please keep sending your photos to viewers at globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you back here again tomorrow. Have a great night.